Játé szép relativírgyenesei ma idéskízni initially Billiganabashachin, Kinlachitni Dashache, Billiganadashanala. Welcome back to Res Ball, where Andy and I are going to talk all about Ausar Thompson and what in the world his season and development would look like this season. If you listen to a bunch of NBA podcasts, there are people like Zach Lowe, Bill Simmons, oh, not every last single Pistons pod saying, yeah, we think Asar's going to take a jump forward, but like, what does that even mean? And what is Asar's comp even? I don't think we've figured that out yet. Anybody, no matter how much we like him. So let's get started on Ausar Thompson right about now. Cindy, welcome back to our Pistons pod. You ready to talk about Ausar?
This will be a fun conversation. Let's do it.
I know. Yeah, it was definitely so much fun to watch all this film again and look at everything that Asar has done and dive into guys that I tried. I mean, there were so many names that I looked at for Asar and trying to nail down the one-to-one comp. If you listen to me through the draft space, I mean, the first draft I covered on the podcast was 2023 Asar's draft, and the very, not the very first episode, but the second episode we ever did here at Res Ball was Does Shooting Even Matter? And it had to do with the Thompson twins of like, we know that they have shooting struggles. These are guys that you should project like never being able to shoot just because of how bad it was. And we'll bring that back up here in a minute. But before we get started, Andy, let everybody know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
My first question to you, Andy. I mean, we already believe Asar is going to take a jump this year, right? I don't think we have to debate that first.
Yes, Ausar Thompson is going to take a leap, but what does that mean?
Yeah, that's my question to you. What do you think it means? What does it look like on offense, on defense? How does it affect the court or look or what does that mean to you?
To me, the number one thing I want to see is Asar's minutes per game, and I want to see him reaching 30 minutes a game. I think that is the number one factor. If you look at his first two seasons, his rookie season, he played more minutes per game than he did last year. And so his rookie season, he played 25.1 minutes per game. Last season, it was 22.5 minutes per game. And I know he was held back by, the injury in terms of the blood clots. But even if you just take the second half of last season, it was still only up to 24.3 minutes a game, which is not enough. But we don't know if there were any minutes restrictions or anything like that. So that's fine. But this season, there's really nothing that should be cutting into his minutes. And I would actually like to see a transition during the year that he cuts into Tobias's minutes and reduces those because either Tobias is here for one more year and then he's gone, or he's going to come back at a reduced role and then with the possibility of him and Asar flipping starting spots. I think that, is something, or actually Asar should be starting this year, but then Tobias would be moving to the bench. But for me, the number one thing is going to be minutes.
Well, you brought up with starting here, so let's start with that. Do you think Asar starts this year?
I think he absolutely has to start this year. Um, there's a lot of factors in what made the Pistons good last season, and it can be difficult to determine because technically they have a better record when Ivy was out from injury than when Ivy was playing. But the thing that also plays into that is that when Ivy got hurt, I think Asar had only played a few games in terms of because he was out to start the season. So that's where it's tricky. You also have a new coach, new system, so you would expect them to be better later in the year than starting the year. But I believe that Asar was the biggest factor in the team getting better for the second half of the season. So I think 100% you do have to start him. And I think their best lineup last season had Tim Hardaway Jr. playing the two and Asar starting at the three. So I just think you're replacing Tim Hardaway Jr. with Ivy, and that's your starting lineup.
All right, so you say increase in minutes. You say the starting lineup is going to be Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, and Jalen Duren. But what does Asar do to take the step forward? Like, do you think he's going to take more threes? Do you think they're going to run certain plays for him? What do you think like that looks like on offense and defense in terms of the production, how it impacts the team?
Um, well, this gets difficult because I would say that for me, a step forward would be him playing with Ivy and the bench unit being like the secondary ball handler and having that role, which now makes no sense because they brought on Karis LeVert. So it's like that is what his role is going to be. At least you'd expect it to be that in the second unit. Um, so that's where I have a lot of questions, and they're only going to get answered once we actually see what the rotation looks like. Because in terms of a step forward, like even last season, like I believe his fouls stayed the same, but his steals went up. Like defensively, like he got better in terms of his steals. His rebounds went down, which I have no idea what the determine. I mean, his minutes were less, but and maybe it was just part of his magical start in his rookie season where there was a stretch where he was rebounding like a crazy person. That and I know it wasn't sustainable, but it was like Dennis Rodman type rebounding where he was just grabbing everything. Um, and what makes it so hard to say what his step forward looks like is we never saw Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, and Duran like play on the court. So how is he going to get used? That's a question mark. His 3-point shooting, and this is something you've brought up many times, and I agree with it. He has to shoot the ball. Even if they're not going in, even if his percentage is terrible, he has to shoot it unless the team has decided they're going to play him more on ball. Because if he's not going to shoot the ball, then he has to be on ball. But if you're not going to give him reps on ball, then the role just gets very confusing for me as far as what is he going to be doing.
Okay, so for my answers, yeah, number one, he should get at least the third most minutes because it's clear that he's impacted the game in so many positive ways. But I don't think he's going to be starting. We'll bring this back up when we preview like win totals and things more in the preseason. But I said it before, start Duncan. I would like it to be Cade, Duncan, Asar, uh, Tobias, and Jalen Duren because that lineup is gigantic. Cade ends up being the smallest quote unquote guy in that lineup at like 6'6". That sounds like an impactful unit with Cade being the mega shot creator, do everything. Duncan, all you got to do is shoot threes. It balances out of Sar. Sar, you just gotta get out there, mess up things on defense, do the rebound push. Tobias. Again, been solid all around, not spectacular, but obviously helped out in the win column and doing the dirty work. And then Duran's do, offensive defensive trade off, and then you bring in Ivy off the bench. But that's not how it's going to go. How it's going to go is how they started off last year. I believe that's still going to be the plan of Cade, Ivy, a shooter, Tobias, and Duran. That makes the most sense to me. Also, I've noticed you really didn't want to answer about what Asar does on offense. Why?
It's hard to understand what he's going
Yeah,
to do.
why? What plays do they run for Asar?
They don't really run any plays for Asar.
Exactly. That's why I don't think he starts because in that starting lineup, it's clear like they have actions and things they want to do. And again, we'll bring this back up, but anybody out there that says that Duncan is replacing Beasley, no, Duncan is replacing Timmy. And to stabilize that one spot that all you got to do is shoot threes. And guess what? Duncan eliminates all those stupid, I'm going to dribble twice and then jack up a random mid-range shot because all Duncan does is, shoot threes. If he dribbles, guess what? He finds the open man to pass to or he gets to the rim. Go look at his shot chart. There's like nothing in the mid-range. It's either at the rim or from three. And again, trying to replace Beasley is ridiculous. Even if Beasley came back, I don't know that Beasley could replicate what he did last season, like we said before. So that's why I think Asar is not going to start because they don't really run any plays for him. All the film that I watched, it's a lot of like I'm gonna stand at the 3-point line and then cut in, and Cade's gonna find me, or hey, I'm gonna be in the corner and then occasionally shoot a three, but mostly cut in or do some post move stuff, back guys down, and then Duran and I are gonna play off each other like that. That screams more of a bench player right now. Yes, there is the possibility like he comes in and he's a, 30% 3-point shooter. That's not wildly out of the realm of possibility, but this is a guy that's never taken over 1.8 threes per game across a full season. So even if he does shoot like 30%, it's probably on like 2 attempts per game. So it's a really low volume. And just because we don't really know what he is, I hate to diss on JB, but JB is not exactly known for being an offensive innovator. He's very basic, keep it simple. Again, the shooting is really what stabilized the lineups and made everything work. So I think Duncan has to be in there. And Asar is still this like wrecking ball that you can just run, let loose, and let his IQ and everything go in there. I listened to the Caitlin Clark and Rick Carlisle podcast last week, and they talked a lot about like random offense. We don't run a random offense. If you don't know what that means, go listen to that podcast from last week. It's incredibly detailed and intricate, talking about how Rick Carlisle really was sick of running plays and just wanted his guys to run the show. And he had Jason Kidd. So he let Jason Kidd like basically go out there and feel what to do. And him and Dirk played off each other. I feel like, I don't know that JB's moving in that direction or really has any random offense like in his philosophy, but especially with guys that are as instinctual as Cade and Asar, yeah, that's why you don't really run any plays for Asar. He makes his own offense. He does so much on defense. Meanwhile, you just need everything else around him. So I think part of the like taking a step forward on offense is just becoming more comfortable in that role and finding your way. And it is more dependent on Ivy taking a step forward and Duncan. Please, Duncan, if you get hurt, oh my gosh, I don't know where the shooting is going to come from on this team. And then, like you said before, the rapport between Duran and Asar like is undeniable. That's something that you can feed in a second unit, and like who has an answer for that kind of stuff? I know Duran still sucks on defense, but those two kind of balance out. You can mix Ivy in there, you can mix Karras in there. I mean, Karras isn't a terrible shooter to the point that like he's not gonna be able to do things off ball for those guys. And then Tobias in the second unit was able to stabilize and do things. I mean, Ron and with the 3-point shooting, this is where I will say I don't think shooting is really going to be in the cards for Asar. I mean, I'm not giving up on it per se, but I am at the point watching all these games, seeing what the team had him do in the regular season and the playoffs. It just screams to me they're like, okay, we don't care if you shoot. We don't want you to shoot. You're not comfortable with it. We're not going to push the issue. Whereas with Ron Holland, we're like, okay, you want to shoot, so we're gonna feed into it. We saw it in summer league, right? He took 5 threes, and he seems confident. Like occasionally, or eventually, not occasionally, eventually, I'm going to get there and be a capable shooter, as my draft co-host Jam always says. So I think that's the thing too, and you can get away with Asar not being a shooter at all because again, he does so much with the rebounding, with the passing, with being instinctual. I'll spoil this. One of the names I'm going to bring up here later, and this is Pascal Siakam. So much was made of Pascal Siakam in this last playoffs because they're like, they don't run any plays for him. Like he just has to fill it in whenever, and he ended up being, what was it, the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals, right? And then that's pretty much all anybody talked about. So it's like, if you're worried, like, they don't run any plays for him, what are they going to do? They don't run any plays for that guy either. And he ended up being pretty good. And he started off pretty much in the similar boat as Asar of like, yeah, he's a big guy. He doesn't shoot threes. I don't think he'll ever shoot threes. He's more of a defensive specialist. And then he's turned in this fantastic career where he's won a title with Toronto and came really close with Indiana. So I do think Asar is probably going to be like a super sixth man kind of thing. Um, and Beasley played the third most minutes last year and he didn't start any games. So I feel like whatever the defensive version of the Beasley, that's what Asar is going to be this year.
So, do you think it's not worth it to start Asar for the simple idea of understanding, does Asar work with Ivy and Duran if you're going to keep Ivy and Duran on this team, Or do you think that Asar is going to basically be the sixth man for his career? Or do you think he eventually moves into the starting role? Like, and now we get to like pretend we could construct the roster the way we would. Like, would it be Cade, Asar, and then two, shooters, and then you have your center? Does that make sense?
I know, yeah. It just comes back to our question of like, why was Karras the first guy signed? If you just had another shooter there, and we wouldn't be having this conversation because then it's like, hey, it doesn't even matter. Maybe you can start off this way, and you have those two other shooters you can throw at any time. Or if you had a stretch four or stretch five, like it was reported they wanted, then again, this doesn't really matter because you're like, okay, you have the super creator and Cade, top 10 guy in the NBA, maybe top five in a season or two, right? And then you have two really good shooters. Then you have a stretch big, and it's like, okay, the rest of the roster, and you got to find your number two still, right? I think the more I think about it, I'm like, what we saw from last season is that Cade, Asar, Duran, and Tobias all work really well together. It's not pretty, right? It's not the sexiest offense, and obviously Beasley probably is the other guy to throw in there of like they worked well. And it's like, guess what? Four of those guys are still in this team, and one of the guys they signed in free agency is a really good shooter that is also a very good passer as well, and he's 6'7". So it's like, again, I don't want to diss on Ivy because we talked about it last time, and we still think he's going to be good. But when you talk about six man, my two thoughts. Number one is like Dennis Rodman started off as a six man on the Pistons team, right? Not because he wasn't talented, because that's just what the role dictated and what they needed. Like Asar could be that same way of just this energy dude that's a maniac on the boards and on defense and can pass and is a lob threat from anywhere. And then the other thing is Ivy just seems to project more as an ideal six man. Again, if thinking of what we saw from last season of who works, and especially with Asar and Duran, I obviously have my beef with Duran, but if you're building with Duran, like that connection was just undeniable that you got to get as many minutes with those two together and with Cade. And then you just got to get two more shooters, man.
So if you remember, it was probably a season ago, everybody said we can't play Asar and Duran together. Like, just because of how floor spacing works, we can't have those two on the court together. Um, but through playing time and people seeing it, they're like, okay, well, I guess they can play together. Um, I think that's where like you have to start Asar with Ivy, and even if for me, and people don't want to hear this, but even if it's playing them just to figure out, like, you know what, we don't need Ivy. Because, and again, this is not a knock on Ivy. I'm a big Ivy fan, but if you're trying to maximize your roster, someone's got to go so you can get a piece that fits better for what you have. And if the other guys work and he becomes the tradable asset, I mean, that's just how it has to work. I mean, I don't think this team stays together the way it is and continues to get better and better and better, and everybody gets paid, and it's not OKC. Sorry, I just don't see it that way. I'm in no hurry to break it up, but I think you have to play it to decide, like, okay, who's moving? What is the piece that we're going to move, and how does this all work?
And again, it's not a knock on Ivy, but I've heard so many podcasters and Pistons and non-Pistons people, because I've listened to a bunch of different off-season reviews from Dunked On to Zach Lowe to Zarik and Mike over at to the basket driving to the basket pod, Bill Simmons. And they all say the same thing of like, oh, if Jaden Ivey was healthy, I think they would have bit the Knicks in that series. It's like, no, they could have beat the Knicks if Malik Beasley was hitting his threes at the rate he was during the regular season, because they were in all the games except one. And again, Asar made such a big difference there. So it's like, I know, again, we don't want to rag on Ivy, but the lineup really worked really good because Malik Beasley was just that good of a shooter as well. And even when he wasn't shooting particularly great, they still had a chance to take it to the Knicks there. And the other thing too that we tracked before was when Asar played 26 minutes or more last year, the team was 6-3. I know it's a small sample size, but guess how many times Asar played 26 minutes or more in the playoffs? One time. They didn't play him many minutes. And that's another thing. It's like, I wonder if you just threw him out there for more time. I know he was in foul trouble in like the first two games in particular, but like just let it ride out. That's again, try not to diss on JB, but it's like, what do you have to lose at that point, right? It's your first time. You want to get these guys exposure in minutes as much as possible. So the impact that Asar has on the game when he's just in there to play is undeniable. I think the game today, like analytics and the 3-point obsession, really has ruined it in a few ways. I don't want to sound like, the old hit of, oh my day, the 3-point shot, it's, surrendering, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the obsession with the 3-point shot is when a guy like Asar comes along, like you don't always focus on the impact that he has because it's just pretty incredible. The raw stats is, as Andy said before, it doesn't look impressive. 10.1 points per game, 5.1 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.7 steals per game, 0.7 blocks per game for Asar last season in 59 games. Shooting splits for Asar were 57.2% from 2-point range, 22.4% from 3-point range, and then 64.1% from the free throw line. All that translates into 56.8% true shooting. So number one, like you're like, okay, that's a little bit above average true shooting, despite being terrible 3-point shooter and being below average from the free throw line. Other things to look at here are the usage rate of 19.1%. For somebody who doesn't have plays necessarily run for him, like he gets his usage through pushing it in transition, through doing spot up drives, and always being another lob threat for Cade, because that definitely counts as usage. The rebounding percentage, it went down a little bit on defense, 12.6, but it went up on offense, 9.3. That's another part that I think goes unheralded about Asar's impact on winning, and specifically with him and Duran. It seems like they have one or the other guy crash the offensive boards and get the other guy back on defense. Like, not a lot of teams can be able to do that. His steal percentage was 3.5. If I remember correctly, I don't think it counted because he didn't play enough games, 59 games. But I want to say that was like second or third in the NBA. I can tell you here in just a second. Remember, it was a 3.5 steal percentage. I believe Dyson Daniels was the leader in steal percentage last year at 4.2. And number two was Chris Dunn with 3.5. So yeah, if Azar makes it a full 80, a full 65 or more games to qualify, he was at 3.5 last year. And if you believe he can take another step forward, then he's right in line with Dyson Daniels. I don't know that he'll lead the league in steals the way Dyson Daniels did last year, because he had a ton of steals, 229. But I mean, it's still, I would say 100, like 131 was Shea after him. Chris Dunn was 128. Like, that's obviously in line. And Asar still made it into the top 20 in steals, even though he only played 59 games with 98 total steals. That's probably one of those areas. Again, a lot of those steals too are like the free safety Ed Reed getting the pick six, turning defense into offense, getting the easy bucket and transition. And that's something to look out for with Asar. If you want to pull this out to the whole, hey, he needs to play 26 minutes or more, I looked at Asar's game logs and I tried to find the cutoff point of, like, because a lot of us said this of the first, well, I guess it ended up being 11 games, but I think we all kind of felt it was around 10 to 15, right? Where it's like, oof, he looks like his lungs aren't there. He's still trying to find his legs. So I tried to find the moment of, like, okay, this is when the team really was like, okay, we're playing you consistently over 20 minutes. Okay, your roles worked out and you can hang on the court. And that came for me in the 12th game when Asar came back, which was December 28th, 2024. So the very last game in calendar year 2024. After that, like, he's consistently 24 minutes, goes down to 14, then back to 25, 16 minutes, 19. Then he has a string of games, 25, 21, 18, 22, 24, 29, 20. Then it's clear, like, okay, this is when he starts to get going. So after his 12th game, December 28th, 2024, until the end of the season. What did that look like? Well, the remainder was 48 games. And in those 48 games, Ausar was 10.7 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.9 steals, 0.8 blocks per game, and 1.4 turnovers per game. The main things are the rebounds, 259 in those 48 games. That would make him have 442 for the whole season if he did make it to 82 games. Steals, he would make it to 152 at that rate, which again would have put him at second, right behind Dyson Daniels. He didn't make it to 200, but he did clear Shea's 130. And then the blocks 36. That's still very respectable, especially for a player that's a perimeter player. And then the assist to turnover ratio, 114 assists is what it would end up being to 65 turnovers. If you want to project that out to an 82 game schedule, at that rate, it's 194 assists to 111 turnovers. So very, very close to a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Again, it's super all around impact on the boards, getting out and passing, getting those steals at a league leading rate, and then still being a good shot blocker. Shooting splits in these last 48 games were 57.7% from 2-point range. So that goes more efficient, goes up. 21.2% from three, only 33 shots. And then 65.6% from the free throw line. So that also goes up. My biggest hope with Ausar is that he gets to like low 70s, mid 70s free throw shooter, because that can really turn around his true shooting percentage to be like 57, 58%. We already saw with Najee Marshall when we looked at Jaden Ivey last time of like, these guys that are 55% effective field goal percentage. Najee Marshall was the one that we pulled because he had terrible 3-point numbers. It was like 29% or something like that. He shot 81.3% from the free throw line and then like 60 something from two, and he ended up being 58.4% true shooting. Ausar is going to go a little bit below that, like 57, 58%. He's low 70s, 72, whatever. So 57% is not out of the question. The big difference, though, when you look at these last 48 games, when Ausar actually started getting more minutes, it ended up being 23.8 minutes per game, which is about a minute more than what he ended up playing the rest of the season. Justin playing 1 minute more, Andy, what do you think the record projected would be for this? Ausar playing 23.9 minutes per game, projecting out all these stats. What is the record of the Pistons that would be projected in an 82 game schedule with Ausar in this role? You're muted.
So for 82 games, you're saying if Ausar played over 26 minutes?
Well, they say 23.9. So this is just looking at the last 48 games where he finally got set in his role. He's not dealing with, not having his lungs, not having his legs. He's only playing 23.9 minutes per game. What's the projection based off of these 48 games?
The Pistons would be like 50 and 32.
48 and 34.
Oh,
Very
okay.
close. So they were 28 and 20 in these games. Again, 48 games, if you want to project it out into what it would be in 82 if Ausar plays this, 48 and 34. Number one, what's your reaction to that? And again, it's only 23.9 minutes. It's not projecting him to play the 26 that we said.
Um, that's why I still think he starts. Even though your argument for him coming off the bench, I totally get it. I want to see him start. I want to see him on the court as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I hope he's playing at least 25 minutes. But I mean, again, Beasley, we can go look at Beasley here in a minute. He ended up playing the third most minutes. So let's go find Malik Beasley. Here he is. And he ended up playing 27.8 minutes per game coming off the bench. So probably something like that for Ausar Thompson, right? If he's coming off the bench.
Yep.
I think too, like it's Cade and Ivy in the starting unit, right? So then one of those guys comes out and Ausar comes in and he can play with both of those guys. Obviously, the sample size with Ivy is going to be smaller. And then if you keep Karras in there, or excuse me, if you keep Duncan in there, then you still have your other shooter And then once you're ready to rotate somebody else out there, Karras can come in and still be a capable shooter at least. And really, it comes down to like, is Stu going to shoot threes again? That could be a big difference. Or like, is Ron or Bobby or somebody at the four in the backup unit going to be able to stretch the floor, even if it's like 33%? And that could be a big, big thing.
So, like, I played around with the lineup where Ivy, so the starting lineup was Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, and Duran. And Ivy and Asar get subbed, are the first two who come off, and Duncan, and I think I had Ron Holland coming in to kind of be in Asar's role. And then when Cade and Tobias went to the bench, Ivy and Asar were basically coming in to replace them. And I like that a lot. But it brings us back to that same question of like, what is Karis LeVert doing? And I get terrified, and I know it's preseason or off season, but I get terrified when I see articles about him having a big role and being like the sixth man minutes wise. I still think there's a role for him. I just think it's a small one, and I think it should be a small one. And if it's a big role, I see it as a problem in terms of Asar and Holland and just everybody else in terms of what we'd like to see from them.
Yeah, and we got to think about it this way too. They lost Beasley, they lost Timmy, they lost Fontecchio. We have to chop up those minutes, right? I think the easiest one is to say Asar gets the majority of the Beasley minutes. We can just project Ivy into second most unit minutes. Tobias jumps down to fourth, and then the Timmy minutes go to Duncan again because that's easy, and then Karras and the rest of the lineup. Like it just kind of I can't I can't in all good conscience, even from the like we're not sure what he's doing. It would make no sense for him to play over anybody else there. Again, Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, Duncan, Stu, and Duran. And then you start getting into like, okay, maybe Karras plays over Rod. Again, I can't justify him playing over any of those other seven guys that, like, again, should clearly be in there. So it's good to see Asar within this. But I set out on this journey because for me, I was like, okay, let's not number one, figure out what does Asar's, jump look like next season. Zach Lowe in particular made me go down this line because he's like, I think Asar could take like 2 leaps next season, and then he just moves on next point. I'm like, what does that even mean? Does that mean like he's a 33% 3-point shooter? Does that mean he's like defensive player of the year? Like, what does that even mean for you? I don't think either of us are really projecting the 3-point shot in particular. I want to get your thoughts on this first, though. Like your thoughts on Asar as a 3-point shooter. What does he even do that? What is his 3-point shot even doing in year number 3?
So I'm gonna look at Asar's free throw shooting. So from his rookie season, it was basically 60%, 59%. And then it went up to 64% last year. So that's a good increase. Um, is there a possibility he could get up to 70%? I think that's possible. And at a 70% free throw shooter, I'm happy with him. The problem that I have for the 3-point shooting is it did go up from 18 to 22, which is still bad. But the problem is that the attempts went down. And for me, that's a sticking point because if the attempts, because now it becomes a thing where every time he gets the ball and he's thinking about shooting a three, it's like there's so much nonsense going on where it's like you get it, you're open, you shoot it. And you're going to keep shooting it until we do decide, you know what, you can't shoot it. This isn't going to happen. And we're going to have to move on. But until then, you have to keep firing it up because that's the only way it's going to become not a thing. Where it's like, you know what? He's made it up to whatever his percentage becomes, but it's not a thing because everyone knows you're willing to shoot it if you're open. That's just my opinion. And looking at what Ron Holland did in Summer League, it makes me very hopeful. We have no idea what Asar has been doing for his shooting in the offseason with the shooting coach. Um, but I can keep my fingers crossed. But if I had to bet money, I would say he never becomes a 3-point shooter, and that's just what you're going to have to work with.
The question was in year three, 3-point shooting for Ausar looks like what? One a game, two a game, zero. He took 49 threes in 59 games last year. If you don't know, again, the per game was like 0.8. In the playoffs, 6 games in the playoffs, Ausar took 2 3-pointers, one in game four and one in game five. Just so you all out there know like how little he took last year.
So if I'm the coach, Ausar Thompson is shooting 3 3-point attempts a game, minimum. But I'm not the coach. Since JB is the coach, I can see him putting up less than one a game, and I would be so discouraged. Um, unless the reason why he's not shooting them is because Stu is getting four a game. That would be the only thing that would make me happy. But unfortunately, I could see them having him not shoot any threes, which I think is wrong.
So I mentioned it before. The second ever podcast I did for this was, does shooting even matter with the Thompson twins? There were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 names that I brought up during that podcast. Only 5 I really looked at in particular, because at that point, the first 3 that I looked at, I just kind of glanced into. So this is back in like December, November of 2022. And at that point, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, and RJ Barrett did fit this profile where in the season before their draft season, the last season they were either in college, overseas, wherever, I would look for players who shot under 70% from the free throw line and under 30% from the 3-point line. And Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett all did qualify for those parameters. So now we can actually look back in there and look at it. But when thinking about them, trying to apply them for Ausar now, you can't do it because all those guys got usage. All those guys came in day one and were featured number one role player or number one player. Like even for somebody like Evan Mobley, who is thought of more defensively, again, he's getting offensive usage. He was more somebody who could operate from the post and did still take threes. He's taken more threes than Ausar in those first 2 years, even if they didn't go in. So those don't really apply still. But the other 5 veterans I looked at were OG Anunoby, Kyle Kuzma, DeJounte Murray, Pascal Siakam, and Jaylen Brown. I think only one of those applies to Ausar. And we'll go through a litany of guys today because this is the hard part with Ausar is trying to figure out like his one-to-one comments. You just heard us both bumble through the 3-point ones. We're like, to me, I've gotten to the point where like, okay, if he never shoots, what does this look like? But there's still, and to me, again, there's one guy out of these 5, OG Anunoby, Kyle Kuzma, DeJounte Murray, Pascal Siakam, that I'm like, this still applies. And you could still say, yes, he can become a 3-point shooter. I gave it away already, but who do you think it is, Andy?
I would say Siakam.
Yep. Why?
Well, and sorry to go off on a tangent real quick, but you mentioned Evan Mobley, and when his 3-point attempts went up, who stopped coaching him?
And my rebuttal to that though is JB did have Isaac Okoro. That's a name I didn't look into, but as I was talking and as I looked at my list again, I'm like, oh, that's probably somebody to look into too, because his shooting did improve under JB and he did start taking more. And that's another name like you could think of just solely probably just for the shooting uh, projection and progression, because it's like it incrementally. But even then, I think Okoro came into the league like 5 steps ahead of where Ausar is, and he ain't a good shooter, but it's just like that's how far behind the 8 ball Ausar is as a shooter. But back to Siakam though, like why is it Siakam? Well, number one, the first 2 seasons in the NBA, Siakam rookie year with Toronto, 4.2 points per game, 55 games, only 15.6 minutes per game. So Ausar already cleared him there. Second year in Toronto for Pascal Siakam, 7.3 points per game, 20.7 minutes per game. And both those seasons, rookie season, 14.3% from 3 on 0.1 attempts per game. And then second year for Pascal Siakam, 22% from 3 on 1.6 attempts per game. It wasn't until the third year when Pascal Siakam shot 36.9% from three on 2.7 3-point attempts per game. I know he is the exception, he's not the rule, but it is still an indication for Sar, and he's not the one-to-one comp for Sar, but he's very close. I'm not going to lie to you, I really thought about it because anybody who remembers my guy Pascal, New Mexico State legend, the first 2 years, he pretty much was only a defender. Famously got his role in like Raptors buying into him because he guarded LeBron in the playoffs. He's the only big body dude that could do it. And they were just like, dude, this guy's like a low post guy from New Mexico State. And trust me, being the Lobo guy and from Albuquerque, I mean, if you told me he's going to become Eastern Conference Finals MVP, he's going to be a really good 3-point shooter, he's going to be able to create and have these spin, I would have been like, you are out of your mind. You're right. And he just really blew up. So I think Pascal is like a good intro to trying to find a SARS comp and like even having a glimmer of hope of becoming a 3-point shooter. I, again, like you said, we have no idea what Asar is doing in the offseason, if he's working with Fred Vincent or if he's working with other shot coaches and stuff. But Pascal, similar path here. And even now, what is this, like 9 years in? He'll be in his 10th year. There's still not winning plays for him because he's such an instinctual player. He worked on his role player stuff, and he's been a 20-point big game scorer since his 4th year in the NBA. He's never dipped below 20 points per game since his 4th year in the NBA. So I think this is, again, if you want to be super optimistic while still living in the realm of reality, like this is a really good comp for SAR and thinking like 3rd year, 16.9 points per game for Pascal Siakam, 6.9 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.7 blocks per game, 60.2% from 2-point range, 36.9% from three, and 78.5% from the free throw line. I mean, that's, again, probably best case scenario of like, oh, look at, he really improved at all this stuff. Would I bet money on it? Would I advise you to bet money on it? Hell no. Like, keep your money. We're never going to be a podcast that talks about betting lines and doing all that stuff. For me, it's more about being worried of having somebody go broke and stuff and whatever, and I would never do it myself. But like, if you want to believe, here's a guy that similar path, similar despair from three that ended up being something. So I think, again, looking back at that, does shooting even matter? Like, this is one that absolutely 1000% like should be tracked with a SAR. And I really hope SAR could like talk to somebody like this, you know?
This is really good. Like, I I guess I didn't remember the journey that Siakam has been on. Um, and I know everyone gets caught up on the flashes that a young guy will make, but outside of 3-point shooting, Asar has a lot of flashes in terms of driving to the basket and creating things and what he does. And I know Siakam has like his little spin move that he would always do, but I can see it. Like I can see and but the thing that you have to look at and remember with Siakam's numbers is his 3-point attempts kept going up. Even when the percentage wasn't good, like he kept shooting it. Like whether they decided like you're gonna shoot this, my friend, you're gonna keep doing this. And then he did have that one season where I think he had like 6 attempts and shot a good percentage. But then he had another season like right after where it went back down. But it's just something that he worked through. And even if the 3-point shot doesn't come around, you look at the other aspects of what he does offensively, and I could see that. This is a very good comp.
Yeah. And another reason why I'm like, if you want to believe and be as positive and, all optimistic as you want to be, Pascal Siakam's 3-point attempt rate for his entire 9-year career is 23.5%. It's not like a huge staple of his offense. It's still, like less than a third of his offense. There's only been 1 year where he cleared 27.4% 3-point attempt rate. And that was 4th year in Toronto, 33.1% 3-point attempt rate. And then even now in Indiana and these last couple of years with Toronto, it was like 18%, 21%, 19%, 23%. And then it didn't go back up into 20, over 20%, 27.4% this last season in Indiana. Why is Asar not Pascal though? Because again, I looked at a lot of guys. We're going to go through more of a historical journey here. Why is this not going to work for Asar? And like again, I would even if I did say bet money, this is not the one that I would say bet money on.
I do not know.
Usage. So far, there is zero indication this regime and this coaching staff is going to give Asar the ball to run plays, to create offense, right?
Um, yes. I mean, we have Kate Cunningham, so everybody else is not going to get the usage that they I don't want to say that they should because he should have the ball. But then it's like if you want to see what Ivy has, okay, and then it's like that's where again and again I have nothing against the guy, but bringing in Karis LeVert cuts down those options for him to get more usage. But yeah, I don't see him ever being in a role where he's going to get the usage to develop into that.
Yeah,
And
and if you want to believe, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Uh, And I think you pointed it out last podcast where I'm kind of sad, or these are your words. You're kind of sad that they won as many games as they did last year because it kind of took the opportunity to let Asar do that kind of stuff, and even this year kind of play around with that because now they have expectations where it's like we can't do that. We got to win basketball games.
Yeah, and I would really have to dive into this more, but Pascal was the man at New Mexico State the last 2 years he was there. Asar has never been the guy. He's always been second banana to his brother, you know, and the City Reapers and going back to even before that. So he's always been a supplementary role player. He doesn't have that in his background to where that's again, it is what it is. NBA teams, if you weren't ever the guy, again, I have to look into this, but and if you can think of somebody off the top of your head, let me know. Like, is there anybody who wasn't first primary scorer, number one guy on our team who in the NBA became like this monster guy that the team turned over to be one of the primary scorers? Can you think of anybody?
So I would think of Jalen Brunson when he left Dallas and went to New York.
No, but
Uh,
I mean, he never had that in his background because Brunson had it in college.
oh, yes, yep. So you are
Yeah.
correct.
Again, I'm not saying it never happened. I'd have to think about it, but that's a big thing of like the difference between Siakam and Asar is like Siakam had that in his background of knowing like to be the number one guy, and when a team drafts somebody, like probably in their projections, is like eventually we can turn the ball over to them, even if it is in the second unit. And so far, from what JB and the staff has shown, it doesn't seem like that's in the cards of like we want you to be a primary guy. We're going to give you the ball and develop you that way. Again, year three, that's what happened with Pascal. That's why I still bring it in here as a realm of possibility because it didn't seem like that was the case for them in Toronto either. But lo and behold, it ended up being the case. The comp that I gave Asar coming out of college, and I'm already going to spoil, it's not going to be this for the same reason of just like usage is Andre Iguodala, 6'6", 215 for Dre here coming out of Arizona. Again, it's not going to be just because of usage, and Dre really became like the primary, pretty much point guard here at Arizona in his second year and then ended up going to Philadelphia. And even by the second year, playing with AI is when they're like, okay, we're going to give you the ball, let you run and rock the rim and do all this other stuff. And then by year three, blew up to be an 18-point per game scorer or whatever. And really in his time from Philadelphia all the way into that 1 year that he was in Denver, he was like number one or number two guy. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to AI. He and AI ran together for the last couple of years in Philadelphia. But I mean, he has Andre Iguodala has a lot of the same similarities of Asar. Wing sized, can handle the rock, can really pass. Not a shooter at all. I mean, his career high in 3-point attempts was 3.7, which he did twice his fourth year in Philadelphia, and then like his seventh or whatever, his second to last season in Philadelphia. And then his career 3-point numbers are 33% from three on 2.7 attempts per game. And really, those are bolstered by one season, his last year in Philadelphia, where he shot 39.1% from three, and then 36.2% in 2016, 2017 from Golden State. Otherwise, it's like pretty brutal, like, 33%, 31. One year he was 28.2% in Golden State. Again, this is somebody that projects very similar to Asar in that regard of like, sure, he took them, but he was never successful at them. But it didn't matter because he knew how to get to the rim. He was a very good passer, sometimes could even play the backup point guard position. And the main thing, of course, was being a fantastic defender. I mean, famously won Finals MVP because he locked down LeBron and shut down that Heat team. One-time All-Star, 0405 All-Rookie team, four-time champion, and then two-time All-Defense. Again, why I didn't. This was the projection I had coming out of college because I was like, okay, Amen clearly has point guard potential that like whoever drafts him is going to give him the ball. Even if he doesn't shoot his rim pressure and passing, you can give him primary point guard usage and he'll create and put pressure on the rim and potentially be like a top scorer type of guy. Think of De'Aaron Fox on steroids, whereas with Asar, again, he'd never had the background of being like the primary guy. He's probably going to be best as a defensive specialist. You can't buy into the 3-point shot, but he's still dribble, pass, rebound. It's like, okay, to me, that's why Andre Iguodala was like, is he number one? No. Could he possibly do it? Sure. Is that team going to be, super awesome and make it a deep playoff run? No, absolutely not. But when he becomes a supplementary role player to focus on defense, is he going to make a big difference? Absolutely, for sure. Which is what Dre did once he got to Golden State. And like, again, that still kind of applies to Asar. Can he get to those average, what my co-host on the draft podcast Jam always calls a capable shooter? I mean, Andre Iguodala on the Warriors is probably the definition of capable shooter. Just in his career on the Warriors, where he won 4 titles, 34.2% from three, then 63.4% from the free throw line. Both of those numbers project like Asar, and the 34.2% will be highly, highly, an improvement from where it is right now. Just in these years with Golden State, 7.3 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 1.1 steals per game, 0.5 blocks. Again, I think that's more the projection for Asar. But I still I went away from this comp now, having seen Asar for 2 years, because again, I'm like, Dre had a career before this role, and he had time to work on his shot as a result. Again, just seeing how the Pistons are going right now, it doesn't seem like they're even giving him that time to work on it on the court. I don't know what you think about this comp, if it's still, useful, but as we go forward, these are just names I'm bringing up where it's useful to think about for Asar. It's like names that will help you understand him, because the whole point of this is trying to understand what does that jump look like. There's still shades of Iguodala in there.
I I think there's shades of Iguodala in there. I also remember so many of the playoff series with him when he was on Golden State, where it's like he knocked down free throws and 3-pointers in big games where it's like he knocked, and he's not the only one that there's a bench guy who's, a questionable shooter. And sometimes those are the guys who turn series because they're knocking down shots because they're open for a reason. There's a reason why you were open, but he knocked them down. I think this is another good con for him. But the point you brought up about Asar never being the number one guy anywhere, I think is good. I've never considered that.
Yeah, so it's why I've turned away from the Iguodala comp. Is like Andre was more, again, overtaxed role player, for lack of a better term. And it made me think, okay, what does it look like for a player who still has the impact that Andre Iguodala has on winning? Clearly, like, winning organizations want him. And the whole point of me putting the Andre Iguodala comp on Asar is like, sure, he's not going to be this gaudy stat guy, but he is going to help you win titles, which I think we all agree with Asar. But I also look at Andre Iguodala's accolades, one-time All-Star. I'm like, I don't think Asar's ever going to be an All-Star. Sorry, Asar. But the other part of it was like two-time All-Defense, and I'm like, I think Asar is going to have more all-defensive teams. Like, I think he's going to be multi-defense. Again, looking at the steals just off of that, he's just behind Dyson Daniels. If he makes it to 70 type games, he's going to be in the running for steals champ. And with every last single commentator only talking about two things in this playoffs. One was Kay Cunningham. The other one was Ausar Thompson's defense on Jalen Brunson, locking him down, right? Even Jalen Brunson talked about it. So I'm like, I love Dre, one of my favorite Wildcats here, but two-time all defense, I think that's still selling Ausar short. So I started looking towards guys that like were thought of as defensive only type guys, but still very impactful. It is, again, it's going to take a little bit of a weird turn here. Marcus Camby was somebody I thought of. Again, the role, he's a center, shot blocker. Obviously, it's very different, but he's somebody I looked into a little bit because Camby, four-time block champion, all rookie in his rookie year, four-time all defense, and then 06-07 defensive player of the year. If you look at his stats too, like he only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of his 17-year career where he had double-digit scoring. Even then, his career high came as a rookie, 14.8 points per game. This is somebody in Marcus Camby who was more around 10 points, for most of his career. I mean, his career averages in 17 years were 9.5 points per game, 9.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1 steal, 2.4 blocks per game. But every year, just brought it on defense. Again, four-time all defense, four-time all block champion. I only thought about this because I'm like, okay, I think Asar can play a very long time. I think he can still be an impactful player on defense. But I'm like, I still think Asar has a little bit more in him than this, to be perfectly honest. But I did think Camby was a good start for me of like trying to turn the corner of, okay, somebody that's not a focal point on offense, somebody that like defense is the clear calling card, and like every team that he's on, he makes a clear impact on winning. So your thoughts on the market? Again, this isn't a smart comp at all. Just to think of somebody who's multi-time all defense, can be a leader in defensive stats, and one defensive player of the year one time, which I think Asar absolutely can do, and that's still in the cards.
So I love Marcus Camby because many, many years ago, I won my basketball fantasy league because of his blocks and his steals. They got so many points, and who nobody wanted to pick up Marcus Camby, so he was available and he makes an impact on the court. I do think Asar has way more on the offensive end, but I do think on the defensive end, yes. I mean, Asar's not a center, and I don't think he'll ever get Marcus Camby block numbers. That man could block some shots, but
I
yeah,
think it's
no,
like steals though. It'd be the steals champ, multi-time steal champ versus blocks, though, right?
yes, yeah, no, but yeah, no, I love Marcus Camby.
Yeah, a more recent one that I thought of, and this is kind of more on a lower end projection. No offense to this guy, but Brandon Clark. And I only thought of Brandon Clark at 6'8", 215. He's listed at power forward. He's played power forward and center, but I think he's a useful one to think of. Number one, he's an explosive dude who pretty much only does dunker spot stuff like Asar does. They don't really run plays for him. But the only reason I looked at Brandon Clark was he shot really well his rookie year, 35.9% from three. And then every year after that's just been like absolutely abysmal. It's been 26%, and then 22.7, 16.7, and then 5.9% from 3-point range this last season with the Memphis Grizzlies. But he's still very impactful defensive player. Gets after it on the glass, is more of a like perimeter type defender. Only looked at Brandon Clark because I'm like, for me, what's a realistic low end outcome? And I think it is kind of like a Brandon Clark where he's more of an undersized big. The shooting doesn't go anywhere. Even if he doesn't become all defense, like he still ends up being a very impactful player like this with Brandon Clark, who's again a very plus athlete. But it fell apart for me because I'm like, I still think just with Brandon Clark has never flashed the defense in the playoffs like the way Asar did last year. The passing obviously is not there, and Asar for certain I think has already beat this projection. But again, I try and keep all possibilities open. We don't have to go over this one very quickly, but just thoughts on that one.
No, I mean it's like you said, I think Asar already clears him in almost everything. But if Asar never improved and got better, like you still have a very good functional NBA player.
So you're ready to get bonkers again. For me, when I was like, okay, I don't ever think this guy is going to be a guy the Pistons run offense for. And like, who, if he does, God forbid, go to another team, I still think that team, whoever gets him, like, still going to be that way. Again, think Rodman. Rodman never had a play run for him in his entire NBA career, I don't think, but made an impact around there and is fantastic. I think he's going to be multi-time uh, all defense. And I also think he has the ability to win Defensive Player of the Year at least one time. So I was like, okay. And again, at this point, I'm like, I don't even think these are unrealistic projections, right?
No, I don't think any of them have been crazy enough.
Yeah. So the next guy, I've heard this from many, many, many people. AK-47, Andrei Karolinko. Again, number one, this is not his comp. For number starters size, 6'9", 220 for AK-47, Andrei Karolinko. The star is absolutely not that tall. Karolinko honestly also had a 4-year run where he was blocking like every last single thing he could see from the 2020 or 2002 to 2003 season all the way until the 2005 2006. So we're looking at 4-season run. Andre Karolinko averaged 3 blocks per game in that 4-season span. I mean, he was an absolute nightmare for the opposition, and he averaged 1.6 steals per game too. So, as much as I love Asar, he is not going to get to those block numbers. Nobody's going to get to those block numbers as somebody who's not a center too. I mean, AK-47 played small forward, power forward, small forward most of the time too when he was in Utah. So, but at the same time, one-time All-Star, the block champion in 04 and 05, was all rookie and then 3 times all defense. The size and the blocks were where it fell apart for me. But again, I was like, I could still see this being a career that Asar has in terms of the accolades, like maybe 1-time steals champ, 3-time all defense. I don't think he's going to be an all-star, though. That's the main part where the Karolinko thing falls apart. More than the size, to me, like we forget in Utah, Andre Karolinko was a double-digit scorer, and there were in that 4-year run that I just highlighted, he was like 16 points per game, 15 points per game easily, and he shot like in mid to high 30s during some of that time too, which again, unfortunately, it looks like a Ausar Thompson just is not going to do. But if he has that similar defensive impact of being one of the preeminent defenders of his day, again, 3-time all defense, maybe wins steals title 1 year, I could see that. But in terms of play style and role, Andre Karolinko is too big, number one, and he's a different type of block, weak side shot blocker type of animal, whereas Asar is more of a perimeter lock you down type of guy. Thoughts on AK-47?
I love this guy too. He just brought it every time he played. Um, I I think as far as Asar, like you've focused on like all these guys are impactful, except for, Brandon Clark, who's probably on the lower end, but they are impactful and they help their teams win a lot of games because they know their role. And I think, except for maybe Siakam and Iguodala, I mean, and I think Asar could have better playmaking than anyone we've shown. The potential is there. Whether or not that, comes out, who knows? But the potential is there for him to be a better playmaker than all of them.
Well, that's kind of why I brought up AK-47 too, because in those seasons he had like 3 assists, 4 assists. He's still, but I get your point because I think those are flashes in those seasons. It wasn't a consistent thing where like you and I could feel confident that Asar would average like 6 rebounds, 4 assists for like a 10-year career, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's without him getting very much usage at all. And that's what he's able to do. So depending on how the team uses him, and I mean, this kind of takes us off on a tangent, but so many of these guys' careers are determined by the team that drafts them and what that team needs them to do because put a Sar on a team that doesn't have a Cade Cunningham and is a team going to try and like squeeze as much of that out of him as they could probably like who knows what he could become in a different role with different usage. Um so but that's not the situation we're working with.
All right, I have two names left. One of them is Asar to me, in my opinion and my analysis, is Asar's one-to-one comp who I believe he's going to turn into. Both of these guys, multi-time all defensive guys, both have won an NBA title, and both of them are thought of as like the best perimeter defenders, maybe of their generation. You have any idea who one of them might be? One of them is pretty old. I mean, you and I are old enough to have seen this guy. The other one is not as old, but like you and I saw his whole career.
Is Draymond Green one of them?
No, I did look at Draymond, but Draymond shot it for one. Number two, I mean, just the temperament and everything, right? And Draymond changed the game. Draymond is the whole reason there's like small ball fives, right? And the whole reason why the NBA no longer just looks at 7 foot dudes to play center. So that's the main reason why I was like, I can't do that to Asar because Draymond is maybe like the fifth most important player in NBA history. I'm not even joking about that, right?
It's funny because like after he punched his teammate, like it just went so downhill for me and him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you are objective, what you are saying is correct. But the question is, for me with Draymond, and I don't want to take us off, like Steph Curry and him, both of them worked together to make that thing happen.
Yeah.
Because it would have been it like without Steph, I'm not sure you can get away with Draymond. So it's interesting. But I'll let us get back on track. Sorry.
Again, think about it. Multi-time, like this guy was a lock every year for the all defensive team, not an offensive player at all. One-time champion. And he's thinking hard. And this guy is forgot so much.
I I don't have an answer for
You're
you.
gonna kick yourself when you see who it is. TA Tony Allen. Again, one-time champ, 2008 with the Celtics. Is early in his career, six-time um, all defense. Famously, Kobe Bryant called him like the toughest defender probably he ever faced, and the guy that he was just like, oh my gosh, like Kobe didn't fear anybody, but he did not like having to face Tony Allen, admittedly, because he made him work for everything. Only one season for Tony Allen where he had over, what is it, 9.8 points per game, and that was his third year in Boston, right at 11 and a half points per game. There was only one season in Tony Allen's 14 years where he took one three-point attempt per game or more. Every year, it's like zero. 0.9, zero. 0.7. So for me, I was like, okay, this is absolutely like safe bet for Asar. Again, the points weren't all there. And again, I hate doing this because TA is like maybe on the Mount Rushmore of defensive guys. Like I would have to think about it. And obviously, being in Detroit, like we probably have two of them between Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman. But like TA is up there for the last guy on Mount Rushmore. You got to throw in like Bill Russell and all that, but just like these defensive dudes that just they didn't have to do anything on offense to impact the game, which is where it is with Asar too. But this is not the Asar comp. There's really only one stat to me that stands out to where I'm like, okay, well, I guess two technically, but for me, it's one stat in particular that I'm like, yeah, it's not Tony Allen. Why?
Um, so I don't know what the stat is, but for me, why Tony Allen wouldn't be the comp. Um, Obviously, I did think about Tony Allen just because of his size, but he played so much bigger than his size, like because his defense was so
Oh,
good.
yeah. I mean, you just look at a basketball reference. They list him as shooting guard, small forward, point guard. They could have listed him as a power forward if Zach Randolph wasn't there.
Correct. Um, but for me, and maybe it was just later in his career that he was such a liability on offense that I think like Asar already has way more offensively and not just shooting the ball, like not just, being open and putting up a three, but like if Asar's not going to shoot a three, he can drive where Tony Allen didn't have that same ability offensively. So that's where I feel like, and defensively, yes, but I just think Asar already clears him on the offensive end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the athleticism and the size. I would. A lot of people would probably be like, "Yeah, that's the main thing with the Tony Allen. He's never like a vertical spacer, lob threat that Suarez." But for me, it's the assists. I think Tony Allen rebounded really well for his position, especially being 6'4". I mean, there were seasons where he's averaging like 4 or 6. I mean, the second to last year he's in Memphis, he was averaging 5.5 rebounds. Like that's ridiculous for a guy his size, you know. Um, so if to me it's the assist part. Like TA never really passed the ball, and that was a big reason why he became a liability. It wasn't just the lack of shooting. I mean, if it was the lack of shooting, that Memphis team would have gotten nowhere. Between Gasol and Zebo and TA, I mean, poor Mike Conley is just crying every night. Like, why do I have to put up so many threes? Um, I think it had more to do with that of like not being able to create and do other things like that. So while I do think Asar, absolutely could have this type of career and have a defensive player, this is one of those a little old man. This is where I will go off on the old man rant. I think the reliance on like advanced statistics has ruined a couple of awards, defensive player of the year being one of them. Like the fact Tony Allen never got a defensive player of the year, absolutely ridiculous. And I saw him and Marc Gasol joke on a podcast because Gasol was like, if I win a title, I'll give you that defensive player of the year trophy the year that I won it, because he thought he should have won it, TA. So hopefully he gave him that trophy because he definitely earned it and deserved it. But yeah, again, TA, not the athlete of Suarez and definitely not the passer, but still a rebounder, again, maybe on the Mount Rushmore of defenders. Yeah, sure, Asar can have that kind of career, but we think it could be better on the offensive side too, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons, and that and the stat pointed it out, is that Tony Allen wouldn't have more assists is that when he's driving or attacking the basket, nobody's leaving their man to help out his defender because his defenders got it,
I
So
mean, when he got the ball, it was like, all right, everybody take a break. So that's not happening with a SAR. Sorry, TA. SAR's 1-to-1 comp. I'll give you a hint. Larry Bird said he was the toughest guy to guard him ever, and he hated this guy guarding him.
I don't know.
So I am distinctly qualified to talk about this guy because I know almost everything about him, and that's Michael Cooper, aka Coop. Why I say I know almost everything about him, he comes from New Mexico. I mean, growing up, Coop is like the legend. And he's maybe the best basketball player ever to come out of UNM. This is a four-way, battle between Mel Daniels, Pacers legend Mel Daniels, Detroit legend Mel Daniels. Mel Daniels originally comes from Detroit. It's where he plays high school ball. Michael Cooper, Danny Granger, and Kenny Thomas. It's just one of those four guys. And a lot of people probably pick with Kenny, though. Shout out Kenny Thomas, because he's a local kid from Albuquerque High. And yeah, he had a fantastic career there as well. But Michael Cooper, 6'7", 170, right off the bat, the height and the length. Absolutely 100% a SAR. For those of you unfamiliar with Michael Cooper, you're going to look at the stats and you're going to be underwhelmed. Only 2 seasons for Coop where he had over 10 points per game, 86, 87, 10 and a half points per game. And then back in 81, 82, 11.9 points per game. But just like Asar, over 4 assists per game for his 12-year career. Asar's probably the better rebounder. Coop only had 3.2, but this is a different age too, where like if you're a shooting guard, you're not rebounding the ball. And if you are, you're getting elbowed in the face by your own teammate, a power forward or center, of like, stop trying to take my job. But Coop, yeah, 4.2 assists per game, 1.2 steals per game, 0.6 blocks per game, 8.9 points per game across 12 years. Shooting splits for Michael Cooper, 50% from 2-point range, 30% or 34%, excuse me, from 3-point range on just 1.4 3-point attempts per game, and then 83.3% from the free throw line. The awards. Michael Cooper, 5-time NBA champion. Again, every last single Laker talks about how important Michael Cooper was to every last single title run they had. Larry Bird talks about him ad nauseum about he was the best guy to guard him. Like his toughest dude to guard Larry Bird. Every time he hated facing him. Go look up the tape. It's amazing to see. And he's so much skinnier than Bird, too. Bird's like 6'8, 230, 250. And here's a 6'7, 170 skinny kid giving him the business, and it's the length, it's the athleticism. Michael Cooper, 8-time all defense. Again, I think we both believe that's like an Ausar thing, especially with how the award, again, my old man ran, the award is once that journalist base, whatever, falls in love with you, advanced defense, and you do that every single year, you're going to be a lock. Every single year for all defense or being in the running for defensive player of the year. And then Michael Cooper won the 1986-1987 defensive player of the year award. Started off his career off the bench too. He didn't start consistently for the Lakers pretty much ever. Played in 873 games, only started 94 of them. And Michael Cooper even has in his career the glimmer of hope that Ausar could become a 3-point shooter because the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in Michael Cooper's career, he shot 27.7% from three on 0.7 3-point attempts per game. Again, I know it's a different time and era, but the reason I picked Michael Cooper holds a playoff record. Andy, do you have any idea what playoff record Michael Cooper held? I don't know if he still holds it. He probably doesn't hold it anymore. But at the time, it was a big deal.
I have no clue.
Most threes made in playoff run, which I think happened. I can look at this playoff one in 1987, 1986, 1987, which is, what is that? Like 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like 8 years into his career. Even look at his playoff runs, he didn't become a 3-point threat until like year 7 or year 6, and then became like a real legitimate 3-point threat. Pushes it in transition. Again, the Showtime Lakers, no offense to Norm and Magic, but I think Coop was one of the guys that made a real big difference with his athleticism. Famously, another guy that they run offense for, but they ran one play for him. Do you know what that one play is, Andy?
I do not.
Oop. So he would just drive from spot up and Magic would give him the alley oop, and it was like money every single time, which again, go watch those highlights and you're like, that's Caden Ausar right there. Like number one, every year past year 3 is like around high 3s, low 4s assists per game. Again, Magic's the guy. He's Magic, all-time assist leader, but somehow Coop every year is like just as big a playmaker as a Magic Johnson, even though he's never really starting a game. And this is why I say I think Ausar doesn't need to start. And if you didn't know this already, Michael Cooper is in the Hall of Fame. It's not, again, I don't like to pull the trigger on comparing guys to Hall of Famers or all-time greats. And, I know there's people like, Michael Cooper, blah, blah, blah. He's my New Mexico guy, man. Maybe the best guy to come out of our college ever. So he's an all-time great in my list. And again, just go watch the film. If you have not watched Michael Cooper, please stop what you're doing. Go watch some old Lakers games. You know how much I hate the Lakers, but Michael Cooper is my guy. And the lone Laker I make the exception for, of giving all the love and the praise to. And I think this is what Ausar ends up being. Again, for 12 years, 8.9 points per game, 3.2 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.6 blocks per game, 5-time NBA champion, 8-time all defense, 86-87 defensive player of the year. That sounds like an Ausar comp to me, man. I don't know about you.
I'm going to have to watch some Michael Cooper so that I can see. For some reason, I don't know why this popped into my head while you were going through this. How much, and we're going to have to deal with this next season, but what's the extension price look like for an Ausar Thompson?
Very, very, very good question. No, I mean, oh, can we find somebody? I mean, we might do this now and take a little pause in the recording. Do we have somebody who basically was only a defender, but like an all defensive defender on their rookie contract and then re-upped? Is there anybody?
I'm trying to think and nothing is coming to mind.
All right, let's go. Let's see if we can find, because I know here on Basketball Reference they'll list the award winners. Where's all defensive teams? I know they do list. Oh, here we go. So last year, Tamani Kumar hasn't re-upped yet, so throw that one out the window. But that's another probably like mm, similar era there. Um, I guess Draymond would technically count, but again, change of the game. I don't think we can really put that one in there. Lou Dort, that's one.
Mhm.
That's probably pretty similar, right?
Yeah, we can look at Lou.
Let me go back to, so where's it at? Other,
What did was Marcus Smart recognized as a good defender by his rookie extension?
I think so. Yeah, I'm believe. Oh, Herb Jones. That's probably the perfect one.
Now he kind of messes things up because he's taken some weird cheap contracts.
But he's also shot it way better than Asar has. There's been a season where he shot 40%. Jaden McDaniels, that's another one. I think he signed a rookie max, but again, probably a bad a bad one because he's taken over three threes every single year,
Yeah.
34.8%. So and he's like their, I don't know, fourth scorer or something like that.
It, it just
I think we found a
with this,
couple names.
yeah,
Caruso. Caruso just signed for 20, right?
but most of these guys they can still shoot.
That's my point. I think Caruso is probably a good one of like, he impacts the game on both ends. And that's the part about it with the star that's going to be the toughest to throw in there is like, if you just focus on the shooting, then you're going to poo on him. But you're like, what about the assists? What about the vertical spacing? What about this? This is why I give again the Michael Cooper one. He doesn't have to start. He doesn't shoot the ball. I mean, not until like year 8 or whatever it was for Coop. But every time you watch the game, like he makes the lineups work. He guards the team's best offensive players, smothers them, makes life absolutely unbearable. Maybe go back and look at Tony Allen too to see what kind of contract he signed for there. I mean, this is at least like a 20 to 25% of your cap space guy, right?
I don't know, were any of those guys that much of the cap? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think I don't think you can deny their role and importance to the team, but I don't think they made a ton of money.
I mean, McDaniels signed the max, I believe, right?
But I think what makes him a little different though is like technically he's because he can shoot the three at a good percentage. Like,
But he's not a max. Everybody would admit he's not like a max player, really. It's because he makes the lineup work that they have to pay him. Because if you offer him less than a max, he's not going to take it, right?
well, that's yeah, that's the part that for me is going to be very interesting.
And I'm trying to find contracts. Where are Pelicans? Where'd you go? There you are. Yeah, so Herb was 13 and 14. I think that's probably low end for a star. And then let's go look at OKC. Where'd you go? And Caruso is 18, 19, 20, and 22. And then with McDaniels, and we'll have to look at this later too in terms of percentages, because again, I believe McDaniels was a max or at least a near max, and his is 24, 26, 28, 30. I'd be perfectly fine giving Ausar that money. 24 million, 26, 28, 30. Because let's see, we're at 154, right? 154.6, I think, is what the salary cap is this year, right, Andy?
Yeah, that
Let's
ballpark.
see. 154, 6. And we'll just do 30 million, see what 30 million is at. It's like, what percentage of the cap is that?
20%?
Something like that, right? And if that's where your high end outcome is for paying Ausar, again, I would make the argument he helps everything on defense. We've said it before. Without him, like, I don't know how good Duran looks.
Oh no, I agree. I agree with you. I'm just wondering if he never shoots, if he becomes a value in that respect that he doesn't get that money, or because he's a top 5 pick, because he has a twin brother, because he has a name and like I don't want to say marketing power, but you know what I mean? Like that.
But he does have marketing power. I mean, him and his brother started a whole new freaking league, for crying out loud, that
Yeah. Like
is
they
so successful because of him.
Yeah,
On,
like
on
because of his name, do they get more? And I mean, even though he's not his brother, if his brother gets a giant contract, like, is he like, hey, I'm not taking this much, you know?
Yeah, but his brother like gets so much more usage that that's going to be the
It's
difference
different. Yeah,
too.
I know.
And even the guys that we're looking at, Herb Jones, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, who's the other? Oh, Jade McDaniels. They all are paid considerably less than their counterparts who are like the primary offensive guys. So that's just the way it works in the NBA. Even if you're the preeminent defender who shoots 40% from three, like Herb Jones, you're 12% to 12.6 per three, 12.63% of the cap. So Herb Jones, the contract he just signed, 20 million the first year, 22 the second, 24 the last year.
Yeah.
Which, again, if you're a savvy front office, you're like, okay, this is what we're going to start offering you. And if you're a savvy front office, the high end is like a Jaden McDaniels.
Yep. All right.
And honestly,
Good.
Asar is the one to me too on the other end of it, where I again I would feel comfortable paying him a max off his rookie extension if he continues down this trend of being like the guy that can not eliminate but frustrate and make life hell for the opposing a team's best player. And he still rebounds, he still pushes in transition and does all this other stuff, passing the ball and all that. That to me is worth another max slot. The hard part about it is just you still don't have a number two, and that's more roster construction stuff. That's why I said Asar's number two. And again, all the data we track so far, just like when you play this guy more, the team wins more. It's just like that to me is worth the max slot. And it's not always about, production and points and stuff in the stat sheet, even though Asar does in other ways. I think if he just continues to get down this track and taking a leap forward, is something more of like the Michael Cooper, where you add one more play where you can just spam getting an easy alley oop to him, and he just gets even better on defense, smothering out the opposition's number one guy. My biggest fear with Asar, and we talked about this before I start recording. Anybody that listens to Rashid Wallace Sheed and Bonzi Wells podcast, they talk a lot about Tim Donaghy and like the whistleblower thing of how if you don't know, Tim Donaghy rigged games and was paid off. They don't say by who, but we all know it's the NBA, to give guys fouls or affect the outcomes of games through the referee. And Bonzi talks about this with Raja Bell, where Raja Bell was like locking guys down, and he ended up being this really good defender, and specifically on Kobe Bryant, where he was just shutting Kobe down. And then she told Bonzi, like, watch now, Raja is going to get two quick fouls within the first 5 minutes he's in the game. And they're like, every time after that, 5 minutes, two fouls, 5 minutes, two fouls, 5 minutes, two fouls. We all know the league still does that. My fear with Asar is that he's going to get Raja Bell like that, where he's so good on on defense that he is affecting the NBA's, like, oh, we don't want to ruin our stars and not have them perform well. And he gets the refs are like, hey, you got to give that guy 2 quick fouls. Yeah, and then you could call it tinfoil hat or whatever, but we know that's the case with a lot of guys. So that is my fear with Ausar because he is that good on defense.
Yeah, he had foul trouble issues against Jalen Brunson. And I mean, and it's funny because as physical as the playoffs get, there's certain guys who still get their whistle.
Yeah, and the other one we'll look at here just real quick again, Jaden McDaniels. So Jaden McDaniels, 23 in the first year, million, 25 in the second, 27 in the third, 29 in the fourth, and then 30 in the fifth year. The percentages are 16% of the cap, 15.7, 15.4, 14.9.97, and then 15.17 in last year. Again, to me, I'm perfectly fine with Ausar being between 16 and 14.97% of the cap, averages out to around 15% of the cap. I think Ausar, again, to me, is worth a max slot. But if you can get him at like 15% of the cap, I think you're setting yourself up for constructing a fantastic roster. As long as you lean into shooting and get a better center, for crying out loud.
Yeah, no, that at these numbers that makes sense because you're you still have money because the team still needs a number two.
Yeah, and it's somebody that clearly contributes to winning. The other name, just real quick in the end, because I know some people are still worried about Ausar. Michael Kidd Gilchrist is a name that I thought of when this, of like, okay, a bust that kind of had the same outcome. And I'm like, if anybody out there is worried that, I don't think there's many Piston fans that are worried about it, but just to quell the fears, like Ausar's already shown so much more than MKG did by this point. Not the MKG, not the passer, not the rebounder, not somebody that can push in transition, not a lob threat at all either. Not somebody that really played a bunch of different positions like this or covered up for somebody on defense the way that Ausar does as weak side shot blocker or as the point of attack defender. So, like, he's already cleared that. And the last name I want to bring up, like, if it doesn't work out, the offense is just brutal. He doesn't end up being the passer of Michael Cooper and whatever. I think the bare minimum lowest outcome for Ausar is our old buddy JYD, Jerome Williams, Junkyard Dog. For those of you not old enough to remember the Junkyard Dog, Jerome Williams is about 6'9", 206, mainly played power forward. Go look up any of his highlights here. I mean, he's maybe on the Mount Rushmore like Piston role players as well. Yeah, nothing like other guy they never really ran plays for. But you know what he did is he just ate glass. He defended his ass off. And he was just always a really good connective guy with Grant Hill teams and those like late 90s, early 2000s. I love me some JYD. And I do still see a lot of JYD in Ausar, only and more athletic and somebody who has better court vision and much more explosiveness.
Yes, he Ausar already clears those guys. Like he's just I mean, in a league of athletes, he is the high end. So he's yeah.
As Cade said about Ausar and Amin, they're different from us. So that's why, to me, Michael Cooper, that's who I see when I see Ausar. And I really think that we're going to see 12 years down the road, similar thing, hope and pray that he's a 6-time NBA champ with the Pistons, one-time defensive player of the year, and going to be a multi-time all-defensive guy. Andy, do you have anything to say before we get out of here?
Very good work on the comps. And
Yeah.
I'm very excited because I see Asar trending more toward the high end of his comps than the low end of his comps. But
Yeah.
let's see how the coaching staff uses him.
Yeah, especially after that playoff run, like Tony Allen, Michael Cooper, AK-47, like those are the names that people should be bringing up. And this podcast was a joy to prepare for because I love defenders. I mean, I think almost any Detroit basketball fan, like we love defenders. So if you haven't seen any of these guys, go back in the archives. Kirilenko, Tony Allen, Michael Cooper, even look at Brandon Clark, some in recent guys like this. Check out Pascal Siakam, his first 3 years in the league to get an idea of like, could Ausar actually do that? Even though we don't think it's possible. Again, it's not out of the realm of possibility because you never know. Next time we are going to look at Cade Cunningham in more detail because he's the other one that we both feel very confident is going to take a leap forward. But it's I think a lot of people just think like 25 points per game. I just got to maintain that. But to me, I'm like, no, I think there are two areas in particular that he doesn't even have to take a gigantic leap forward in. But if he takes just one step forward, like he could be in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander territory. I know what you think about that, Andy.
Yes, I'd like to see him shoot threes more. I'd like to see him get to the foul line more, but I I like you. I think there is a step forward. And kind of to talk about, something you brought up before, the 3-point shooting around him will be interesting to see how that affects what he can do.
Yeah, the foul stuff, I'm gonna spoil it here. I mean, that's totally out of his control, and I'm kind of the mindset that like the refs are gonna screw him his entire career. And it's just the way things go in Detroit anyway. I remember I listened to a lot of the Sheed and Bonzi Wells because obviously Sheed, you love Sheed here. Pro Sheed podcast always. And he was like, when I got to Detroit, I knew the refs hated me, but I didn't know they hated Chauncey too. And he talks a lot about how like Chauncey had a bunch of problems with all the refs. And he's like, who would hate Chauncey? Why would you ever do that? I feel it's that same way with Cade. It's just like the Detroit problem continues, even if you're the nicest dude or whatever. And I flash back to, I forget what game we were covering. And I know you probably remember this like easily when Cade was like trying to walk away from the ref and the guy followed him. And then Cade turned around to say something and he teed him up. It's like, I feel like that's going to be its relationship with the refs from now into eternity, which I wouldn't have it any other way. We don't want to win based off of getting cheap foul calls, man.
I don't think I'll ever forget that when you just said that she'd said, "Who could hate Chauncey?" Like for real.
Yeah, yeah, again, it's another thing to take away from this. Go listen to Sheet and Bonzi. Like they, no filter, 100% honesty. It's fantastic. Listen every time.
Good work, my friend.
All right, Eddie, let everybody know where they can find you before we get out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us, and we'll continue the joy and preparation and watching film on Cade Cunningham next time. I've already started, and man, it's just yeah, it's so much fun to watch. Never can get enough Cade Cunningham. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. Catch you next time. We'll go next.